Hello, and welcome to Monumental, where we sit down with entrepreneurs, leaders, visionaries, and big thinkers making monumental change. Here's your host, Evan Holiday.
Welcome to Monumental. I'm your host, Evan Holiday, and today we have on the show with us the man himself, Dan Fleyshman. Dan, great to have you on the show, man. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. Just staying busy.
Yes. Busier than ever, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So most of our Monumental listeners have likely heard of you or seen your work. You've done some amazing things over the years and really been able to impact a lot of people. But before we dive in, I want to give our listeners a little background on you. Dan is the youngest founder of a publicly traded company in history. He sold over $15 million worth of clothing by age 23, then went on to launch the Who's Your Daddy energy drink into 55,000 stores, and went on to launch Victory Poker. He's a serial entrepreneur, angel investor, advising over 25 companies. He's a generous philanthropist. He supports over dozens of charities, including his own, modelcitizenfund.org, which creates and distributes backpacks to the homeless. So I'm really excited to dive into all that, not to mention, the 100 Million Academy, the branding that you do, the impact that you have. I'm really excited to dive into that. So with that, let's just dive right into your story and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I'll give you the fast forward version. I started in high school. By 18, we did our first million in sales. 19, we did 9.5 million in the UK, licensing our brand out there. Did a couple more years of just selling clothing. And then that's when I launched the energy drink. And then from 23 to 27, I don't remember much. I was just selling. I was just traveling the country, got into those 55,000 stores through 43 distributors. Most every major retailer was carrying the beverage at the time. Then on the 10-year anniversary, on that day is when I resigned, so I could put another feather in my cap. So I did the same thing from 17 to 27. And so I went on to start an online poker site, built up a big poker brand, and then online poker gets shut down in America. I was like, oh no. Just built up a company doing millions and millions and millions of revenue per month. I'm like, this is serious business. Like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And so I paid back all the players so I could be the good guy in the space because my competitors were not being the good guys. And so that led me to start consulting for other online casinos and live casinos, in-person casinos, and for one of the biggest financial groups. So I took that money and started my social media agency and started angel investing into companies. So since then, I've now invested in 36 companies. And my social media agency, we spend around $60 million with influencers for brands, products, and mobile apps. And then we throw those elevator nights for free. For the last 6 years, we've done 38 live elevator nights. And then we have our free ones on virtual ones every Sunday as well. And then we have the 100 Million Academy, which is one of my biggest focuses right now. Obviously, the last 5 months is just building that up for the masses.
I love it, man. In going back through your journey, I mean, I've heard you talk about, you've been basically kind of an entrepreneur salesman since you were, like 4 or 5 years old selling cards?
Yeah. So my parents, we didn't have any money, but my mom was working at like Century 21, saved up some money to open up a Levi's jeans store, really tiny little place. Every weekend we would sell Levi's jeans at the swap meet. And so out of the back of a van. And so I would sit next to the van and I'd have a little table and I'd sell baseball cards, like a little mini Gary Vee. I was like 4 years old, just selling baseball cards.
Yeah.
And did that for 4 years. And the baseball cards and comic books, that all stemmed from that moment. And I think that's where I got the entrepreneurial spirit from, was I just liked the action. It was fun.
And now here we are today. You're wearing a pink Levi's pullover. Yep, I love it.
Exactly. Got to stay loyal to the brand.
So one thing that I'm curious about your story is how do you, going through so many businesses and having such success and ups and downs and roller coasters, what kind of questions are you asking yourself to get yourself to be thinking to that next level and continuing to grow?
Yeah. So it's just watching what everybody's doing, adjusting to the market, and realizing we are in a completely different world. Like, people are going to act different. We're going to think different. We're going to work differently, interact differently with each other in person and online. It's just like, it forced us to go virtual, and it makes people now think how they like when we get done with quarantine, it's not like we're all just going to jump back on airplanes and sit next to each other like this.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to all just jump and fill up restaurants and wait in line. Like Disneyland will be different. Everything will be different. And so that's not a short-term thing. So just adjusting and understanding, what does different look like? Some of it's you're guessing, right? Some of it, what I'm saying, is a guess. I hope it's an educated guess, but it's a guess. And just looking at how people interact and what they're going to do and adjust to that. And so within my own businesses, within the companies I invest in, with working with clients, it's just teaching them and talking to them and asking them questions at the same time. What are you doing different? What does your customer want? What do your partners want? Your vendors want? Your investors want? What does everybody want and need? And adjust to that, because there's no more holding back, meaning like we're forced to adjust.
Yeah.
It's not optional if you're going to do this. It's not optional if people are going to wear masks. It's not optional if people are going to use hand sanitizer. It's not optional if every restaurant needs 6-foot signs now. Like, these are not optional things. So because of that, how do you adjust? Do you stay in your big office, or do you downsize? Do you let people work from home, or do you not? How do you adjust?
And so it sounds like that's when, where you are now today, where we all are with the quarantine, is going through, we have to ask ourselves these tough questions because of this unique situation. But I think pulling back even before quarantine, it sounds like you were already asking yourself those questions, those kind of open-ended, like, hey, what do these people want? What do these people, being more proactive and intentional about your business instead of just trying to go, you're kind of pulling yourself out of it and asking those questions.
Yeah, you don't want to wait till afterwards. The problem for most people is they wait till the situation arises instead of thinking about the situation in advance. If you wait till the situation arises, like supplies are run out or people run out, meaning if you can go pick up really good staff right now, we'll start thinking about staff you can go hire now because they're out of a job or they're on furlough or they don't know if they're going to go back to their job. Instead of waiting till toilet paper runs out, think about getting toilet paper early. It's a similar concept of like, if you know things are going to happen when we reemerge and you know you're going to need to have hand sanitizer for your location, then buy sanitizer now. If you know you need signs that say 6 feet apart at your restaurant or pizza shop or dry cleaner, buy them now. Don't wait till then when everybody's trying to buy them. And so it's just adjusting in advance for whatever changes you need to make in your business. Start preparing those now.
So what have you been doing as far as your companies, the companies you're invested in, those that you advise? What have you been seeing, and what kind of action have you guys been taking to be more proactive given the craziness?
Yeah, so for the office, we're just effectively closed for a while, probably for a couple months, especially because LA is so strict. So all of us work from home, but we're a social media agency. So for us, it doesn't matter. We can talk via Zoom. We're on group chats. We are able to function that way. That doesn't apply to somebody who's in the retail space or has to be in an office. For one of my investments into Everbowl, it's a 28 location acai bowl restaurant chain. Within the first 4 days, the founder, that's why I invested into him, he immediately pivoted and started doing deliveries all through Southern California, him and his staff, and preparing for being able to ship nationwide acai bowls for your freezer. So that whole business is now focused on that until they reopen.
Wow.
And so it's just adjusting to reality. Like, hey, if people can't come buy acai bowls from us in person, let's ship it to their houses. And so just adjusting in any way we can, depending on the business.
And as far as opportunity right now, I think there's a lot of people kind of questioning what they're doing, why they're doing it, why they're at a W-2, what is their path? And this is giving them maybe a little time or the opportunity, or forcing them, like we talked about, make tough decisions or have that conversation with themselves. What kind of opportunities are you seeing in your work?
So anything you've ever wanted in life will be on sale this summer. Doesn't matter if you want to buy a competitor, you want to buy podcast equipment, you want to buy a house, you want to get a new office, you want a car, anything you've ever dreamed of, from equity, stock, business, clothing, everything's on sale this summer. And so mentally preparing for that and being ready to take advantage of it. And it sucks because it sounds like you're being a vulture taking advantage of it, but it is a reality of what the scenario is.
Yeah.
Cars will be cheaper, and you will not have to put out the same amount of money up front. They
Yep.
want you to just take the car, just take it. Homes that you normally rent for $2,500 a month, you can now offer $1,800, take it or leave it. And if they don't take it, there's 17 other ones on the same block that are going to be vacant. So we are in the situation where whatever it is that you're looking for or want in your business or personal life will be on sale this summer. And so I'm not taking actions yet because the pressure hasn't actually happened yet. May 1st, you're going to have that next round of pressure like, wow, a lot of companies didn't pay rent. A lot of humans didn't pay rent. It's not just rent. It's cars, insurance, medical, life.
Salaries. Yeah.
Just stuff, right? We don't, the government keeps talking about rent when that's like that's our only bill. We have, we have 14 bills to pay. So May 1st will be a big pressure point. And then June 1st is when I think we have our real true recession start, because then it's like, okay, you haven't paid 3 months of rent. The landlords can't handle that. Landlords are business people too.
Yep.
Some of them are just independent owners. A landlord that owns a fourplex that hasn't got rent for 3 months, he can't survive. He's got a mortgage. He's not getting forgiven. So the layers to all this starts to get really interesting. But also, when you see one business, it's all the impact that happens around it. So let's say you're one restaurant. It's not just about the restaurant. It's the person that delivers their water.
Yeah.
Not the water company who delivers their water, who warehouses their water, who packs the boxes for their water. All those employees, that's just the water. Who cleans the forks? Who cleans the linens? Who supplies the linens? Who sells them the forks? Who delivers those items? There's like all these moving parts, and we're not talking about the big equipment. I'm talking about the basic needs, like who brings the ketchup?
Yeah.
The delivery driver that brings the ketchup is not getting paid right now. The trucking company, the gas station they normally go to, it's like you go down the rabbit hole, like, wait a minute. This one restaurant has 80 different vendors.
That are all depending on them.
Right. Now do that at scale. And now do that when a couple million restaurants are not going to reopen, and they shouldn't.
Yeah.
They can't. And so it's going to get really interesting this summer. And from that comes a lot of good stuff too. There's going to be a lot of new opportunities, a lot of new businesses pop up, a lot of new hires happen. As we talk about the millions of jobs that are lost, millions and millions of jobs are going to be taken on and hired. And so it's going to be this interesting thing is where this all shakes out. And the problem is, if we don't get back to work soon, every week starts to compound. 1 week of us not working is bazillions of dollars. Not just zillions of dollars to those people, but where they spend it, what they do with that money. That's my concern.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's almost, it's not only the money, it's the fear and the mindset of like people unknown of the future. But with that, it's an very unfortunate situation for a lot of families, but also breeds a lot of opportunity for rebirth, for regrowth, for impact, for starting new companies, creating new jobs. Exactly what you said. I mean, it's interesting. We were actually going through the hiring process for a few positions prior to all this. And then as we're coming into it, we're like, well, maybe we can pivot and have some of these people work and learn the business and like as a transition period.
Right.
And that way, and you're exactly right. We had a massive uptick of people apply like the first couple of weeks of quarantine, because people were like, I worked for a hotel developer and they just laid off everybody but 4 people. It's exactly that. And it's just the first few weeks of that. And like the first month and a half, we've seen wait another 2 months and it's just going to compound.
Yes. It's going to get crazy this summer.
So this summer, when do you think, you said June 1st is when we're really going to start feeling things. Do you know, or do you have an idea of when you're going to start taking massive action on, whatever that is, whatever that opportunity is for you?
Well, I've already started hiring people. I hired 4 people that are, I cherry picked them, people I wish I could get. I normally would not be able to get from competitors and friends' companies, and they're just happy that I took them. So it's not like this animosity thing. And I got some serious people that I was like, wow, this is a huge pickup. 400 million Academy specifically. And so from that side, I'm analyzing humans, right? If I could pick up somebody from a competitor agency or from a competitor brand, or if Everbowl, for example, if some head of franchise was leaving another healthy food chain, well, yeah, let's take them, right?
Yeah.
I'm willing to gamble because I know long term we're going to get through this, right? Even if we go into a deep recession, people still eat. People still going to use social media. Like I try to stay in businesses that are not expensive. I try to avoid high ticket stuff and
That are evergreen, just like Everbowl.
yeah. And so when I will take action would be this summer is I don't have a set date. It's a set scenario, meaning somebody owns a fourplex and it used to be 800 grand, but now they'll take 570. The renters are still in it. They just can't afford it because they got hurt on something else. That's a situation, right? Not just about the discount. It's that I know that there's still income there because it's a rental. I wouldn't go buy a shopping center just because it's a big discount because I don't know if I can rent the place out, right? I know I can get $1,700 in rent per person or per spot on a fourplex. I don't know if I'm ever going to rent out that strip mall again, right? So I don't gamble on those situations. Even if they gave it to me for 50% off, that's not my market because I also don't know if this thing, Corona, doesn't happen again this summer or just extends. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't bet on things that I don't know. I do know that people have to live somewhere, right? No matter what, they're going to figure out how to get rent. They're not all going to go homeless. That's not how it works. Like, we can't allow that to happen. Their families won't allow that to happen. Like, if they have to max out credit cards, take loans from their friends, like people will live somewhere, right? And so that low to middle tier price point, I like a lot. And I'm not even a big real estate guy. I just study it and talk to all these big real estate guys all the time. But I love that low tier, middle tier price point. And because a lot of people from a higher end and middle side are going to go down a notch, but they're not going to go to like Section 8. They're not going to go to nothing, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons, emotional, pride, whatever. They'd rather overpay and go somewhere. And so I'm looking at 4 scenarios. And if a scenario came to me today, I actually wouldn't take it because I think it's going to get worse. I know it's going to get worse. It's just math. It's just, it's not I don't talk about politics or emotion. It's just math. Like, it's just math. I know that when people stop spending money, other people stop spending money, and those people stop spending money, and those people stop spending money. It's just math. It's just reality. And so I look for what is the scenario that would make me jump is they actually have an income or business. They just need a relief or a situation, or they're willing to take a big discount because of something else. If that makes sense. It's not about that property or that business. Let's say you brought me a business. Okay, we sell those lamps. We do 200,000 a month in those lamps. But I own an apartment building. I'm screwed. Half my people aren't paying rent. I would sell my lamp business because of this. That's interesting to me. Does that make sense? I'm not looking for a distressed asset here. I'm looking for a scenario where you need help. I don't know if I'm explaining that perfectly.
No, I get it spot on. I mean, we've talked about that quite a bit in our business is, the opportunity lies where owners of assets or businesses, even maybe they need cash. Cash is more important than the asset itself. And so that's where the real value is, where you could get something discounted. And for them, the cash is more important than selling it at the real market value.
Right. I've been seeing people selling the rarest cars, rarest watches. Like, I see people offering their businesses for free. Just take it and give me some equity, or just take it and take over my overhead. I've been seeing those left and right. Like, people keep sending them to me, not to me to do it, but like to my friends, and my friends are like, hey, should I do this one? And it's businesses that did 4.7 million revenue, netted 800,000, but the guy's just screwed, or the lady's just screwed. Like, there's a scenario, or they got a job for something else, and they're like, hey, take the business off my hands. I'm going to go be the vice president of some company because they fired all these people. There's like fascinating scenarios that are going to come up. It's like, really interesting.
And to that point too, I think I've seen, yourself included, a lot of influencers, thought leaders have all been pivoting everything that they're doing that they would have done in person, the in-person events, the masterminds, everything's going on Zoom now or online. And so do you see that, or I guess, how can our listeners, if they're wanting to build out their own influence platform or thought leadership platform, or helping others by sharing their knowledge, how can they best, really dive deep and double down on what's going on right now?
Sure. So the main thing is to truly be an expert. A lot of people are an expert because they listen to an expert, meaning they listen to Wolf of Wall Street teach them about sales, and now they think they can go teach sales just from listening to somebody who's lived it for 20, 30 years. They listen to Cole Hatter talking about real estate, and then they try to regurgitate Cole's content instead of actually buying or flipping properties like Cole's done, or Clever Investor or any of these guys. And so one is being an actual expert, studying those people and doing that stuff, and also studying online and consuming as much content so that you are an actual expert. That's one. Then building a personal brand. The personal brand is critical because you are asking people to pay you money for here. The more people that know your brand and trust you, the more people, they vote with their wallets, right? The more people will actually pull out a credit card and execute on that. And so building a personal brand is critical, and building actual social proof along the way is even more critical. So getting those followers, getting those eyeballs, having people believe you, and then showing you actually flipping a house, and then flipping a house, and then flipping a house, right? You taking those steps and actually executing, well, now people believe you because you're the guy that flips houses, and they've seen you do it for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so really studying it, living and breathing it, building up that personal brand, and then showing you doing those things will cause people to trust you to buy your programs or buy your courses or buy your masterminds or listen to you.
And then as far as doing and also I guess another question that I've learned along my journey on Monumental and sharing great stories like yourselves is how have you seen individuals reaching out to you to want to collaborate or have you on a show or whatnot? Where have you seen the most success for you to say, hey, this seems like a great opportunity. I'd love to be on.
Sure. The hard part is I'm getting hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And so because we just hit the 1 million podcast mark in the world. Like there is literally 1 million podcasts. It's not a fake number anymore. It's a real number. However, only X amount are actually active. So lots of people have a podcast and they don't do more than 2 or 3 episodes because they realize how hard it is to be consistent. So I'm looking for podcasts that I respond to that have actually been consistent. And listen, I don't need them to be big. Yesterday I did a high school kids podcast.
Nice.
Right? Like I don't need him to be big. And I know that if I do his, it'll help him build his podcast. Casey Adams, I did one of his very first podcasts. Yeah. He used me and he went and got Gary Vee, Ty Lopez, Ed Milet, Andy Frisella, because he was like, oh, Dan was on mine. Yeah. And so I'm happy to do that. I'm happy for him to leverage me to go do those things. But the reason I did it was I knew he was serious. Yeah. I knew his podcast had been around. Well, in his case, it hadn't been around, but I knew that he'd been around and he was like being very active. Yeah. He was showing up to all the live events. He was learning and actually executing. So the big barrier is social proof. Do I believe that you have a real podcast and that you're going to execute? Most people care about the following. I don't care if you have 600 downloads or 600,000. Is it nice if it's cool if you have those big numbers? Yeah. That's great. But I'm not monetizing it. That's not what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it like I know that if I do this podcast, it will help that podcast grow. And if by default, people like my charity or my business, or they go out and replicate what I'm doing, great. But I don't actually have a sell or an ask on any of these things. I just know that the filtration process is, are they real? Because what I don't want to do is go on someone's podcast, they do 3 episodes and never do it again. Yeah. Or they do an episode and it sucks because they just don't know how to do it because they've never done one before. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think what you're touching on is very true for a lot of influencers where it's like, do they connect with you? Do they create a more than just a superficial or a copy paste message? Are they actually trying to say, hey, look, I appreciate you for X, Y, and Z. I think you're adding massive value and I'd love to help share your message. And being able to connect on that level can really benefit both sides. And also, like you said, it can help their podcast and their platform grow significantly. And you're helping them do that. Yeah. I love it. So one thing I wanted to jump into was, like we talked about the Model Citizen Fund.
and really what we talked about before the podcast was how much that help is needed, helping homeless, giving them the backpack full of supplies, now more than ever. Where do you see the opportunity going forward for your nonprofit?
So we're on year 8. Each backpack has 150 emergency supply items inside. My goal is, right now I'm just practicing. Like we've given out millions of items over the years. My goal is to get this right so that I can have a warehouse full of these. So anytime there's a disaster, I can ship them right away. And so when the hurricanes happened and tornadoes and all that happened in Puerto Rico, we filled up 2 jumbo planes within 2 days, and boom, we were there.
Yeah.
The earthquake happened in Mexico City. The girl that runs my charity got on a plane and went to Mexico City and we're pulling rubble out.
Wow.
We want to be active in that scenario. But the practice, when I say practice, is I want to be prepared to have 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 backpacks on hand, because I can ship out the same day. My warehouse, they're the largest supplier of small goods in America. So if somebody said, boom, this thing happened in Hurricane Katrina happened, I could literally ship out the same day, depending on the hours. Let's just call it by next day, I could be shipping to them. I want to have those prepared, because right now I only have X amount of thousands on hand. So we have, we always have like 1 million items on hand. That's not enough for these situations. It's tiny when you think about how many people need it.
Yeah.
I want to have way more than that on hand, so that when a scenario happens, boom, we can ship. And so the practice has been, what do we do now when we only have X amount of thousands of backpacks at any given moment? And then when we bring in 5,000 or 10,000 backpacks, those go out the same day. We don't keep a lot on hand yet. And so my goal is to figure out ways to fill up an entire warehouse at the right cost basis, because it is expensive to have that space, because we're in LA. Finding one in the outskirts of LA, having it completely filled and ready to go at any given moment. Because most time for the Red Cross, they take almost 11 days. Not by fault. They're so big, there's so much red tape to do that. Where somebody like Walmart comes in and saves the day most of the time, because they can execute in 2 days. They just say, hey, everybody come to my parking lot. We're going to unload supplies from here. They're great at that stuff because they're built for it, right? I want to be more prepared to execute like that.
That's really interesting. I like that model a lot. And that it reminds me, so in college, we did solar decathlon, which was basically building a net zero energy house. It was modular. And our team's plan was kind of exactly like your model, where we wanted to basically have houses ready to go, temporary modular houses that were net zero. So you didn't have to worry about connecting to water or electric or any of that. And you could just ship them on a train to wherever the disaster was and get there in a week instead of, 6 to 12 months, like FEMA trailers are.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. I love that you're doing that work. And I think everybody listening right now on Monumental, go to Model Citizen Fund. Let's help Dan get that warehouse outside of LA filled full of backpacks. And I think that's awesome work. As far as families being affected by what's going on with coronavirus and possibly being, there may be families on the edges that are, pushed into homelessness. What are your thoughts on that, and how we can help those families?
Yeah, the tough part is the homeless shelters were already full.
Yeah.
And so my big concern is, when we come out of this and the landlords do expect their rent, or people that are furloughed do expect to catch up on previous rent,
how
are they going to do it? And so we have this weird, frustrating scenario where normal families are going to be effectively homeless if they don't have families to go move in with, and roommates to do. There's going to be combined families. I feel like there's going to be some really interesting combined family homes. That's how I was when I grew up. We had I think it was 8 families inside of a apartment. Again, This is 38, almost 40 years ago. But that's how we grew up. That was normal in that country. And so I think that's going to end up being here by default.
Yeah.
Where families are going to realize, listen, let's get a 6-bedroom house and let's put 15 of us in there and just split it up a bunch of ways. And I think that's going to be an interesting new normal. I was actually planning on posting about that today, was talking about people being prepared for that and like proactively doing it. Most of these people should start thinking about roommates right away.
Yeah.
You have to lower your overheads. I've always preached about lowering overhead. I've had the same 14 staff at my agency. I've tripled the size of the business, didn't hire one person. I want to be lean and mean. I don't want to be VaynerMedia. I love Gary. I don't want to have 900 employees.
Yeah.
Especially look at this situation. Now there's 900 employees and huge rents. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I'd rather be lean and mean, and that's it. I'm happy with that. I stress to people, you don't need a 3-bedroom. If there's 2 of you, live in 1 or 2 bedrooms. I promise you're never going to use a 3rd bedroom. You don't need a patio most of the time. You don't go there that often. Like the things that we pay an extra $400 a month for.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's only $400 a month. $400 a month is $5,000 a year. You're going to live there for a couple of years. That's 15, 20 grand for the patio that you went on how many times? No, be honest. How many times did you go on that patio?
Yeah, exactly.
So you start to think about like, would you spend 20, 30 grand to go on the patio? Like, and so I try to get people to actually look at their life like a little chart, like, and say, this is what I pay for rent. This is what I pay for this, what I pay for that. I'm not saying stop going to Starbucks because it's $4. Okay. I'm not saying that. Even though, listen, Starbucks adds up. I'm not asking people to cut those things out of their life. It's just analyze like, well, if I do reduce $200 a month off of this, that's $2,400 a year. That's like getting a raise. You make 34 grand. Now you make 36.4. Like, and so I try to be practical with these things without being like, okay, no more Starbucks for you. You know, like,
yeah.
Still being realistic.
And I think to that point, I think the quarantine kind of gave people that opportunity to take an audit of their life and where they're putting their money and kind of where they're putting their priorities. And we did that as well. I mean, we canceled our office lease. We're like, well, we don't need an office. Like, what's the point? Like, we can all work from home and meet when we need to. And that cuts a significant cost out of our business. And you're exactly right. I mean, looking at how each part of your personal budget and your business budget, your operations, and where do you really need money to spend money, and where can you cut back, and where can you actually take that money and invest in the future growth of the company.
There's a lot of things that we all used to pay for that were for ego or what we thought we needed to have to impress clients or partners or vendors or staff. You don't need these fancy offices anymore. It's changed. Like, it's literally changed forever. And so I think people will look at you differently now. If they walk in your office and you've got marble desks and you've got $480 chairs,
yeah,
they will actually look at you like different. I think so. I think people are going to look at you different now.
Yeah.
That you're crazy. You're wasting money for that. We all looked at it different before, but now I think it's going to be like, wow, why do they need a 12,000 square foot office when there's 35 people? They could be in 4,000 square feet, you know, like.
Yeah, exactly.
And just the whole rest of this year, in-person meetings are going to be much less. So, like, I think when we reemerge from this, there's going to be a lot of downsizing. I know there's going to be a lot of downsizing. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of companies like yours that say, you know what, we're just going to work from home. This is functional. We have Zoom. Zoom is amazing. There hasn't been any lack of anything. I don't know how they scaled this fast, but they did it.
Yeah.
So the in-person meetings, and also think about travel, where you used to be like, hey, I'm going to come do a podcast with you, Dan. I'm going to fly to LA and come meet with you. Or, hey, Dan, will you fly to Nashville? Great. Now, why would you?
Yeah.
2 days of travel, gone. A couple $1,000s in expenses, gone. It's just not that thing anymore. And so everything, our whole world changed. And I see a lot of things for the better. My concern is the fallout from that. There's a lot of things for the better, but millions of people are going to be impacted. Because when I say these couple $1,000s is gone, well, think about the valet driver, the Uber driver, the concession stand that you were to spend money on at the airport. Those people, besides the airline themselves. Then when you land, the taxi driver there. Then when you get to the hotel, the valet guy you used to get $5 to.
Yeah.
It's those people along the way of that experience of you coming out to meet with me for 2 days. It's all the people you would have spent money on along the way the apps you would have used, the people you would have tipped, the restaurants you would have gone to. And so that's what's the fallout of that is, if we do reduce, we are reducing those things, what happens to those people? Because the valet guy and the taxi guy, they're not going to go do e-com. They can't go work from home.
Yeah.
They've been a taxi driver for 18 years. What do you mean go work from home? They don't have Zoom.
What does that mean?
Right. And so that's what I'm concerned about, is those people are going to be impacted at scale.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've read that quite a bit, where it's like there's going to be a massive shift in where people lose jobs and where new jobs are. And those skills don't always match up. And then also there's this retraining and basically matchmaking period that just takes a while to play out.
Right.
So it's going to take a while before things start to get back to full normal, or new normal, I guess you call it.
Right.
So as far as those our listeners right now that are going through all of this and saying, okay, well, how do I position myself to really grow my business and be able to come out of this massively on top? What words would you have for them?
I would analyze what's going on in their industry, their niche, and with their competitors, and adjust really, really fast. And really, truly look at everything that they're spending money on, and also how to increase business. Because only thing that's going to matter when you come out of here is more revenue.
Yeah.
It's critical. If you can save money, bring in more money in the door, you now have a leaner and meaner business, because you also have a leaner overhead. So your net margins go up. So by removing an office, if you used to spend $6,000 a month on office, well, you just had 72,000 extra net, plus all the other expenses that happened from an office, right? Lights, electricity, insurance, cleaning, food, blah, blah. You saved $100,000 a year, the net. So your business that used to do 1 million with 200K net now does 1 million with 300K net. Whoa.
Yeah.
Or if it went from 1 million down to 800,000, your net stayed the same because you saved 100,000 over here on rent. So we're really analyzing all this stuff that you can, seeing what your competitors are doing, seeing what's happening in your city, seeing what's happening online, depending on if you're an online business, and really just really understand what the heck's going on, because any little adjustment will change the whole trajectory of your business. You saving just a couple thousand a month is like compounds.
Yeah. I saw a TEDx last night about Novak Djokovic, and how he went from the 600th best player to the number one player in the world was basically just changing the percentage of the points he won from 48 to 53%. And just by that little, 5% over a couple of years is what made him the dominant player that he is now. So you're exactly right. It's just little tweaks that you need to make, but they're the right tweaks that can make a massive difference in your business. So one other question I had was, as far as the 100 Million Academy, I love what you guys are doing. I have a few friends that are in the group, and they've all rave about it. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about it? And then also, I'm just curious how it came to be.
Yeah. So there's two parts to it. We have the 100 million mastermind experience. That is $100,000 per person, 100 people. We sold that out within 6 weeks, which was crazy. And we have this group that is, I would consider, one of the most high-level masterminds in the world.
Yeah.
Because I didn't base it on myself. I brought on 20 other instructors to help me. 100 million in sales is kind of the minimum for them, or 100 million in paid media, or 100 million impressions. And so I brought this group together of different instructors to have this high-level group. From that, they only meet 3 times a year in person. The rest of it's all online. We have a group and chats and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What I wanted was for the masses, for everybody to be able to learn from people like this and other instructors that are similar. So we built 100millionacademy.com. That one's only $100 a month. In that one, we go live every single day at 6 p.m. to be like the Netflix for entrepreneurs. That's our nickname we're trying to build. Because of that, people can watch 24/7 ton of content from all these instructors, or we go live every day teaching them as well with a different instructor. And so that's what I've spent a ton of time, money, and energy on, is built a full staff just for that. to really make that a mainstream thing, an online college effectively, but only from people with 7, 8, 9-figure experience. Nothing else. There's no like, oh, I wonder what she could teach or he could teach. No. That person did 28 million.
Yeah.
That one 145 million. There's no wondering or guessing if they have the experience.
Yeah.
And because of that, I believe that we can truly build an online, especially now, like the timing of it was crazy because online schools went through the roof.
Yeah.
And we all now see that a big percentage are not going to go back to these colleges. And because of it, I think there's a big market for us to be able to teach these people with real content every single day. And so I don't want to consider us an online college in the fact that you're not going to get a certificate from us. Ours is more like a real life certificate.
Yeah.
You're going to learn, you care about email marketing? Great. You want to learn about cannabis? Great. This guy did 200 million. Like we have people for each niche and we're bringing on more and more each week. We film with more and more instructors. And so that is a real true passion of mine. I'm not building it to sell it. I'm building it to have hundreds of thousands of people being able to learn online, but feel a part of it, not just go there and check out. Like I want them to actually feel like they're, that's why we do the daily live call, which is consuming, as you know, but I think it's a big, important marketing part of it.
Yeah. I love what you're building with it, not only the in-person, the mastermind, but also the academy. And I think you're spot on. I think, a lot of people had already talked about how universities at some point were, they're just expensive degrees. And a lot of times that people are underemployed after they get a degree. And not to mention all the other added costs of going there in person. So I don't think anybody foresaw it happening like this, but I definitely think this is going to be that turning point where people are going to say, do I really need to get a degree from a university when I really just want to learn about cannabis or about marketing or about real estate or whatever that's in 100 Million Academy, where I can just learn a specific skill and learn from somebody that's already done it. I think that's pretty fantastic. And I think you're right. Now's a pivoting time.
I'm hoping that these colleges that don't reopen, they convert to trade schools, because it is, listen, college is important for niches. Yeah. If you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor, you better go to college the whole 4 to 8 years, right? Because we want our doctors. I want somebody that's going to pull a scalpel on me to have gone to,
knows what the heck they're doing. Yeah.
I don't want them to learn it from 100 Million Academy. I want them to go, right? But somebody that's going to be, there's so many degrees. I don't want to throw them under the bus, but there's so many degrees that never actually get used as for a job. Yeah. Like your art history major is not going to get a job like that. I'd rather there be trade schools for everybody's sake. And because there's a lot of great people in those colleges that are now going to be jobless that ran those schools, I think there's going to be that shift. And I hope there'll be that shift to these trade schools, because also those properties now are become available. When a college closes, there's 2,300 colleges closed last year. Imagine this year. Last year wasn't closing because of any kind of virus. Yeah. Because colleges are getting harder and harder to recruit people. It's a lot of money.
And more costly to operate.
Yes. And so now this year, who knows what the number is going to be of how many thousands and thousands of colleges don't reopen. Yeah. But think about those properties. Everything around them was built for them. The local coffee shop, the pizza parlor, the barber shop, the housing. Yeah. They were built for that college. And so I think they're either going to turn into like apartment villages, like turn into residential villages, which would be great for them. Or two, somebody come in and cut it up. Okay, that's the trade school for barbers. That's the trade school for accounting. That's the trade, make them into what they could be and should be.
Yeah, and I 1,000% agree, especially in our construction world, in development. I mean, we have always been lacking of quality, skilled construction workers and laborers, and it's because of exactly that. There's a lack of supply of workers that have those skills that match up with the jobs, so it drives up construction costs. So I think you're right. If there's a way that we could retool that and provide jobs for people and provide potentially cheaper cost of construction, then it could, in a way, help all parties. Yep. I love it. Well, Dan, let's jump into our monumental questions. What does success mean to you?
Freedom. I can wake up when I want to, work when I want to. If I want to work at midnight or want to work at 6 in the morning, I want to be able to work when I want to work. And I want to be able to, if my wife wants to go somewhere and we want to go to somewhere, then we can go. Like that part is the success part.
Are you itching to go anywhere once the quarantine's over?
I mean, her favorite place is Costa Rica, so yes, for that. But no, I mean, I like to go to restaurants. Like I like those things, but I don't have any need of like, I don't go to nightclubs. I don't need to go to, I like going to movie theater once in a while, but like I'm okay in this scenario.
Yeah.
Like it didn't impact me that much. I'm an introvert more than an extrovert. So yeah, I don't have any of those needs. I don't feel like I'm missing anything from that regard. She's missing the gym. She loves being in the gym. So that's why we want to get gyms cleaned up and open and functioning. But yeah, we've just been working out outside mostly.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
More than me. She's in it.
I was actually just looking at Costa Rica flights yesterday. So that's, especially now where more and more people are realizing they can like, oh wait, I can actually do work online.
Yes.
It's a lot of people like yourself had already thought like that, but now it's becoming way more mainstream.
And it'll be very inexpensive when you go back. Like the resort that we go to is number 2 resort in the world. And I got an email from them 2 weeks ago, like, hey, we had to furlough all of our staff, and they actually took donations. Like I donated to them just because we go there almost every year.
Wow.
Like that's sad because for them, them making a couple $100 a month is a huge deal in that country, which is sad and scary. Yeah. However, that's enough money for them in that country. What I mean by that is those places are now going to be on major discount. Mm-hmm. So the places that you liked going to, the flight's cheaper, the hotel is cheaper, the experience is cheaper, everything's cheaper to go to it. And now you can work from there if you want to. Yeah. You can have the best of both worlds. I think we're going to see a lot more of the people traveling because of that long-term traveling, not vacation traveling right out the gate. But I do see a lot more remote workers that are going to go, hey, I'm going to go to Cabo for 2 weeks and just work there.
Yeah.
Cheap.
Why not? Yeah, exactly. I love that. Well, what about daily habits or morning rituals that you have?
I think it's better to learn from Jim Quick on that stuff. He's the best of the best on that. I get straight to my phone. I get to work. And Jim Quick, Ed Milet, a lot of them say, and I agree with them, is that first half an hour to an hour, you need to zen out, get to yourself, meditate, get into for me, I'm just wired that way for now. Yeah. But also if there's a morning where I don't look at my phone for 2 hours, I don't care. Like if we're going to go bike riding for 2 hours and I can't see my phone, I don't mind. So I don't have that daily ritual in that sense of the times I need to work, I'm in work mode. The times I wake up and it's just like, okay, I got up too early or I don't mind. So I don't have that set thing where I would say somebody like a Jim Quick would have much more practical tips.
Yep. I love it. Favorite book or book you're currently reading?
I mean, I always go back to the old faithful, just Think and Grow Rich. It's just so inspiring, and you could read it every year and still like find stuff in it. Yeah. So Think and Grow Rich is just my old school favorite.
What is one thing that you have gifted the most to other people?
Connections. Yeah, I set people up all the time, like, hey, and they do zillions of dollars in deals, and I don't take anything from it. Like that. Yeah. Not that sometimes I should have, but a lot of times, like, I'd say 98 out of 100 times, I'm just like, hey, this person needs this, and I put them together, and then stuff happens. And I do that every day of the week for years.
That's awesome, and that's probably the most priceless thing you can give people.
Because I'm vetting both sides, like. Oh, you need a manufacturer for this? Oh, this person's great. Oh, you need a patent attorney? Oh, this is a great patent attorney. Like, I'm not just saying, I'm not Googling somebody and introducing them, right? Yeah. And so the connections are valuable to both sides.
Yeah, and you adding that genuineness of having worked with or known that other person adds that layer of trust.
Yep.
Well, Dan, phenomenal episode, massive value as always. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing with our Monumental listeners. How can they follow you or reach out to you or see what you're up to?
Sure. All my social media handles are the same, just at Dan Fleyshman. It's important for you guys as well listening. Your social media handle should be the same on every single platform. You just don't know how people are going to find you, so you want to keep your screen name the same. And then, yeah, all of our stuff is on there, on my social. I update on Instagram the most, but the content is on every platform.
I love it. Guys, he puts out some fire content on Instagram. Make sure to follow Dan. And also make sure, we mentioned it earlier, modelcitizenfund.org. Check it out, see what they're up to there. And guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to tag Dan, tag myself, at Evan Holiday. Let us know you're listening. Let us know what parts you really enjoyed. And guys, with that, have a monumental day.